Rev up your engines! If your car is creaking along, I'm going to show you how you can fix it with a little spray grease. Now, when I was a young mechanic and dinosaurs roamed the earth, hey, when you got your oil changed, we mechanics would change your oil filter, and we had a grease gun. We would put the grease guns at all the grease fittings on the car. Well, they stopped using grease fittings on almost all vehicles eons ago. All the parts that used to have grease fittings instead, now they'll just have a piece of metal, a rubber bushing, and then the rubber bushing's pressed into another piece of metal. So the metal that moves can move inside the rubber bushing and stop all the vibrations, be nice and tight so you don't get any shaking, and not make any noise until they get older. And since there's no grease fittings, what are you gonna do? This white lithium grease, you can use any brand. This is just the cheapest one I could find. You notice it comes with a little straw. The little straw goes in a little hole. Now you can spray it in crevices. Now, I've never used it on my Matrix, and it doesn't make any creaky noises because it spent most of its life in Texas, where things don't get rusting and they don't corrode. My son's Corolla, on the other hand, lives in the land of Massachusetts. Check out the underside of this vehicle. But first, we'll pull on the emergency brake so it won't roll. We'll get my big Daytona jack. There's the notch for the jack up point. It goes right there. Start pumping it up. Of course, you know it's going to roll down the hill, so I'll push it with one leg and pump with the other. There. Now it's nice and tight. We can jack it up. We'll take off the wheel. Look, I guessed right the first time. Amazing. What skill I guessed all these years. See what I mean? Things are so rusted here, even the lug nuts stick on. Again, it sticks on. And we'll do the last one. What a pain in the butt. How do you take the wheel off? Even the wheel won't come off. This is what corrosion does to your car. It's only 6 years old, but look at that rust and corrosion. That's what happens up north with all the salt they throw in the road. They're working fine, the brakes, but you can see with all this corrosion, it's the rotor's just corroding. Eventually, you're going to have to replace it. And you noticed it was hard to get off because it corroded here. So we're going to spray some lithium grease on this before we put it back together. But when you hear these creaking noises like he is, as you can see, there's rubber bushings here. This is where the swing goes up and down, the lower control arm. There's rubber bushings in there. And when you look inside here, there's rubber bushings. And look at that one, you can see. See how rusty all that crap is? It's gonna start creaking. Now, I've been testing this tools pressure washer out, and it's so far pretty good. Just hook it up to your hose. It's really strong, but it weighs a lot. So it's on a bracket that I bolted in, and it slides up and off. You gotta hide it in the winter, it'll freeze and break. You just turn it on, and the best thing about this is, check it out. It's a 100-foot reel that doesn't kink. As you pull it out, it comes out. Then when you want it to go back in, you jerk it, unlock it, and it goes back in. And you'll see the bottom moves back and forth. And it won't kink putting it back because look, the cheap ones, they just have a hole and it'll bind one end and get stuck. This makes it go even back and forth. So we shall pull it out under the Corolla, and it's got 100 feet, so we're not worried. We're gonna spray all the bushings, and in this case, there's different tips. This is a 15-degree tip. I want a stronger one. We're gonna be using the number 0 tip. It's a straight tip. More pressure, you'll get more crud out. And all you do is go to where the bushings are, start on the lower control arm, and clean them up. As you can see, this is going to blast all the crud out. You want to get in there and do all the rubber bushings, top and bottom. Now, I didn't have to do this before because I was in Houston. When they creaked, they weren't really rusty. You just spray the lithium in, and the grease would keep them from creaking. Here, they're a disaster. You got to get rid of all the rust, so use a pressure washer, then spray the grease in. You want it to spray good, so shake it up. There's a ball, because it is liquid grease. And then, like right here, we'll spray the top of the bushing, spray the bottom. Don't go to the other side. It's hidden way inside here. There we go. Get it in good on one side, then go to the other side. Get it in there good, just in case. We'll do the bushing here on the stabilizer bar. Realize that as you drive, the lower control arm, as hit bumps, goes up and down and up and down, and it has to swivel on these rubber bushings, and then those rubber bushings back inside here. Now they're lubricated. Now, of course, you can't lubricate the lower ball joint because it's a sealed unit. Just like the tie rod end, you can see. It's got a rubber boot, but you can't get grease because there's no grease fittings. If you ever replace a tie rod, get a tie rod end that has a grease fitting, then you can grease it and it'll last longer. But then again, lasting long isn't really the idea for the car manufacturers. Now, if you remember, the wheel was sticking here, so we're going to do all the lug nuts. And you can see it's stuck on parts. Now, if you're a slob and you get any on the disc like I did, you got to clean it off. Just get a little brake spray cleaner. Spray just the rotor itself and then wipe it off. Now it's fine. Now we can put the wheel back on. It won't stick next time. And now the next time we take the wheel off, we won't have to kick it. While we're at it, let's look under the hood. We open it up. You can see it's a typical New England car. The battery terminal's corroded, alternator's corroded. It still runs fine, but you get an awful lot of corrosion. It's just something that happens. It's a Corolla, it runs fine, it gets phenomenal gas mileage, but you're always going to get corrosion up north. You can't escape the salt. So let's jack it down gently, which I can't do with one hand because I'm getting old, so I'll put it down and use both hands. There we go, and we'll do the other side. Again, the same drill. We'll stick the jack on the jack up slot. And we're gonna do the same power washing. You don't want to spray grease on rust. We spray the bushings. We go there on the inside. Then we go on the other side, on the inside. Be a liberal. You don't care how much you use. You want to make it stay. And it does stick quite well. As it says here, it will not freeze, melt, or run. White lithium grease. Well, you can see there's a lot of rust. Eventually we'll have to replace the rotor because it'll just rust. But you can see how everything's rusted here, so we'll spray it, bolts, and around. And again, I got a little overspray on it, so we'll get the brake cleaner. You only care about the shiny part. Then wipe it all off. There, now we can put the wheel back on. Once the wheel's back on, we'll gently let it down and take it for a road test. Now, I know some people are neatness fanatics, so they're going to say, Scotty, you should have put towels or something to catch the grease. But really, I got this nice pressure washer, might as well put it to use. It was creaking when it took hard corners, so let's take on a hard corner and see what happens. Well, we're taking a corner now. I don't hear anything. Let's go to the end of the street, take a hard right. That creaking's gone. That was just junk in his trunk bouncing around. Now we have turned around and we'll take a hard left. The creaky noise is gone there too. Back and forth, back and forth. No creaky noises. Even when we went over the bump. Now shops in Massachusetts are trying to tell them you need struts, you need bushings, you need control arm. But really, all they needed was a little lithium grease. If the suspension parts were wearing out, the tire would be wearing out evenly. These tires are worn perfectly straight. There's no rubs, no scalloping. There's nothing wrong other than this thing has lived its whole life in Massachusetts where they use a ton of salt in the winter on the road and it corrodes things. How you can fix a creaking car with a little can of spray lithium grease. And I do have to say, I'm impressed by this giraffe pressure washer because look, no more screaming and swearing, getting kinked hoses and having to wind them up yourself. It goes right back to where it came from. But there it is. Interesting. That's all because it's got this cam gear here that slides it back and forth so it winds it evenly and you don't have to have somebody sitting there feeding it. It's all done by one person. So why not be like me? Fix everything yourself. You'll save a fortune. You'll have peace of mind knowing that it was done right. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Felix says, I got poor gas mileage on my Honda CR-Vs. I got an 03 and a 2016. Air filter's good, oil changes are done, both are automatic transmissions. The plugs are replaced. How can I get that to get better gas mileage? The 03 gets 16 miles a gallon and the 16 gets 22 on mixed driving. Yeah, well, that's horrible. The one that you're getting 16 miles a gallon could very well be your mass airflow sensor needs replacing, but it could also be dirty. Watch my video, make your car run better with a little spray cleaner. Do that to
both of them. Clean the throttle and clean the mass airflow sensor. You might want to put some good fuel injection cleaner in the gas tank. I like Bernie, the guy in Albuquerque, has a company called ATS, and he has a fuel injection cleaner you pour in a gas tank that actually works. I had a guy put it in a car that got good gas mileage, and he ended up getting another 25 miles out of a tank of gas after he drove it a couple of gas tanks with the cleaner in it. So it could be dirty injectors are doing it too, and you can easily put that in. The stuff works pretty good. A lot of cleaners are gimmicks, but his stuff is ATS fuel injection cleaner. Just Google, you see he's got a site. Pretty smart guys with the cleaners that they've invented. But do also clean the mass airflow sensor and the throttle, because that'll do the same thing.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.